Hey everybody, this is Jennifer Lance with IPMG, and we're very excited you've been able to be here with us today. We are very happy to bring to you Amy Penrod, Advocate Supervisor from Indiana Disability Rights. And Amy's been employed at Indiana Disability Rights, formerly known as Indiana Protection and Advocacy, for 15 years. 11 of those years as an advocate, and 4 of those years as a supervisor. She came by way of the private, non-for-profit sector, managing group homes for adults with mild to moderate intellectual and developmental disabilities in Northwest Indiana. Her motto is, I'm going to do it like it's my own family who needs help. The questions I'd ask, if it were my sister, if it were my brother, those are the questions I'm going to ask. So we're very excited to have Amy here. Before she starts, I just want to give you a little reminder. This training has been approved for an hour external training credit. You'll submit your proof of attendance the way we always do in the Advocare system. It could take up to a couple of days for you to get that attendance certificate, and within a couple of days you'll also get a direct link to the recording and any associated materials. So with all of that being said, I am going to turn this over to Amy for her presentation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Jennifer. As Jennifer stated, my name is Amy, and I'm an advocate supervisor with Indiana Disability Rights, which is quote-unquote, and I'm doing air quotes at the moment, the agency formerly known as Indiana Protection and Advocacy Services. I'm going to preface today's presentation with the fact that we have literally been named Indiana Disability Rights for 2 weeks. And as Jennifer also said, I have worked here for 15 years. So as we changed our name 2 weeks ago, if I accidentally or inadvertently call our agency Indiana Protection and Advocacy Services, please disregard that and insert in your head the name Indiana Disability Rights. The reason that we changed our name a couple of weeks ago is we had undergone some kind of communication research and media research to find that people really didn't know what we are or who we are or what we do. Obviously, kind of the point of this training today. So we found that we were going to change our name and have a more user-friendly, informative name with the name Indiana Disability Rights. It more tells the story of what we actually do. So I'm going to apologize up front for any fumbling of the name that I do. Just know that advocacy is the name of our game, and it has been for years, regardless of what we're called. So with that, just know that we are formerly known as Indiana Protection and Advocacy Services, but now we are Indiana Disability Rights. Thank you for joining today, as if you really had much option. I guess you guys are getting credit, which is wonderful. I'm thankful for that. As Jennifer said, I've been here with the agency for 15 years. For 11 years, I was kind of the boots on the ground, going out as an advocate and investigating. And for the past 4 years, I was promoted, and now I am an advocate supervisor, to where I have a staff that I supervise, and those are the individuals who now go out and do the investigations. So one thing, interestingly enough, that when I came to Indiana Disability Rights, formerly Indiana Protection and Advocacy Services, literally when I came to my interview, I did not know where I was interviewing at. I thought that I was interviewing for Adult Protective Services, and lo and behold, they still hired me, and I loved it and still love it. So if you don't know who we are, do not be surprised, and obviously by the end of this presentation, you should and or will know who we are. So let's just jump right in. I will say that near the end of our presentation today, there is a form of discussion that we'll have. So I will ask Jennifer to come back on and help me with that. But if you have any questions throughout the presentation, if you will just type them in, Jennifer can also share those with me at the end, and we will discuss any questions or concerns or comments that you have throughout the presentation. Okay, what we'll cover today is we'll go a bit over our organizational overview of actually who we are, what we consist of, and who we are comprised of as an agency overall. Then we will talk briefly about the types of advocacy that we provide and the intake and referral processes, how to get into our agency and for the client to begin receiving services, or how to get concerns into our agency so that we can begin providing services. We will also discuss resources available to us as well as resources available to you as the user or individuals trying to access our services, and then we will go briefly into some case studies. The case study is what I mentioned that we will discuss have some discussion on. The mission to our agency is simply to protect and promote the rights of individuals with disabilities through empowerment and advocacy. We want to teach the person who is in need of services not only how to express what they want and need, but also how to obtain that, that need and get that need fulfilled. So we're going to not do it for them, but with them, so that the next time they can take steps to alleviate any problems or resolve their issues on their own. The vision that we work on an everyday basis is for the agency and the community as a whole to live in a society where persons with disabilities are free from abuse and neglect, are free to be effective self-advocates, and are free of discrimination, allowing for full inclusion in society. That is a whole lot to say, that we want every individual to be treated as an individual and to be able to act on their own behalf. We want them to be powerful and empowered to walk in who they are on an everyday basis, regardless of what their ability, disability, or inability may be as perceived by society. They are full people, and we want them to be able to exercise all of the rights of anyone else. Oh, see, look up there at the top. There's Indiana Protection and Advocacy Commission. That is like our board of directors there, to which members are appointed to the agency as the overseers of our agency by the governor or the commission members. This acts just as a board of directors, and they sit and provide direction and advice on the agency's activities, goals, and policies. They meet quarterly in Indianapolis, and meetings are open to the public. So that essentially, again, is our board of directors that is comprised of individuals from around the state who have experience or knowledge of disability issues, have served in positions serving individuals with disabilities, and also are from various walks of life. We've got parents on there, we have caregivers, providers, we have a couple of politicians, so that our board of directors must be comprised of an umbrella of persons with knowledge who can assist us in doing what we do and carry our mission and our vision out across the state. We're always in a revolving time frame on our commission. So if you yourself are interested in submitting an application or a name to possibly be a member or to attend any of our meetings, you are welcome to do so. And we'll have contact information at the end of the slide presentation where you can reach out and either submit an application or learn more about the commission, or even get the schedule of commission meetings if you wanted to reach out and be part of that, even as just part of the gallery. We'll go a little bit into our staffing now. This slide is our executive director, Dawn Adams. She has been with our agency for a couple of years now. And as we have learned in social services, directors come and go, but they always come with vision. And when Dawn started at our agency a couple of years ago, it looked a lot different than it does now. We've taken on very specialized training and a very hands-on approach under Dawn's direction. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she came to us from State Board of Health. Don't quote me on that because I might be wrong, but I think so. She has been with our agency for just about 2 years and is providing a lot of really energetic direction that we are thankful for. Under Dawn is Melissa Keys, and she is our current legal director. they work together in, both of them are in our Indianapolis Central office, and they are working to provide us with the direction to where we work in teams, and I'll get into this a little bit later as well, teams addressing very specific issues of whether it's abuse and neglect or education. But Melissa does oversee all of our legal staff as well as our legal issues, dealing directly with counsel from other agencies, both state agencies as well as private sector agencies. Also included in our executive staff is Derek Duke. He is our Chief Financial Officer. Derek has been with us probably right around a year, and I can honestly say that since he stepped into our federally funded state agency, he has really, really cleaned us up financially so that we have a lot of clarity in our everything from what is allowable expenses to from our budgeting down to our travel and mileage. So Derek has really been a blessing to our agency. Jessica Trimble, she is our Director of Communication and Outreach. Jessica is our very first Director of Communication and Outreach. When I mentioned earlier that we had undergone some research in media and marketing, it was under the direction of Jessica who came on board to try to get our agency better publicized, to teach Indiana who our agency is and what we do. So she's really been hands-on in getting us involved in the community and learning ways to reach the community and the individuals where they are in need of services. As we all know, Indiana, the demographics of Indiana is very varied, from the urban communities in Marion County to the stark differences in the more less populated or ruralized areas in, say, Pulaski County or the southern portion of the state. So Jessica is really teaching us and working with us to get our name out in all of the counties and the areas in Indiana, and has really been helpful in teaching us how to do that. The staff, the kind of middle management staff, is we have our investigations coordinator, Tina Frater. Tina oversees the abuse and neglect investigations and works closely with the legal staff in seeing that the advocates who are on going out and doing the investigations, that she's kind of the liaison between the two, so that all services are provided in a, to make sure that everybody gets the same services wherever they are. To the right of her, that is me. I am the advocate supervisor, as I mentioned, and I am kind of the liaison between our staff and our executive staff. I provide the supervision to the advocates to assist them in their day-to-day activities, making sure that their needs are met so that they can complete their jobs on an everyday basis, doing everything from a little bit of human resources down to FMLA off days and things like that, as well as keeping track of quality of performance and performance appraisals and things to, again, be kind of the go-between for the staff and our executive staff of the agency. Tina has been with our agency, I do believe, approximately 12 years. And as I stated, I've been here 15. These individuals are all of the advocates. These are the boots on the ground, going out, getting their hands dirty, seeing what there is to see, and seeing how they can assist or what they can do to fix it. Included in this picture is our intake staff, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but they are the individuals who begin the process of services. Also included are the individuals who will come out and resolve the issues under the direction of our attorneys and our legal oversight, as well as also included here are the advocates who come out on a regular basis and do a monitoring just to watch and make sure that sites are in compliance, that there are no glaring issues. So that is our advocate staff there. As you can see, I am in the background also as an advocate because I am also serving the individuals, our clients, on an advocacy services, even as the supervisor. We're all here as the service providers or the servants to our clients. Going into our legal staff, all of our services, although the majority of our services are day-to-day provided by non-legal individuals, being the advocates, all of our actions are overseen by a legal staff. A lot of the work that we're doing is legal work to try to resolve issues and deal with problems. We're going to address it through a legalistic standpoint. And so even though we ourselves, being the advocates, are not providing legal services, we are working at the direction of attorneys at all times. Tom Krishan on the left is our managing attorney, and Keith Butler on the right is one of our staff attorneys. Both of these individuals have been with the agency, I do believe, right at 6 years, and they have both come to us from private practice, and both are very, very passionate about dealing with the issues, both from the individual's perspective as well as from the legal perspective, and getting resolution for the person that can be obtained at the least restrictive, in the least restrictive manner. So if they don't have to go to court, or we don't have to go to court, that's better. So even though they're attorneys, they're good people. They just want to fix the problem. Other staff attorneys that we have are Grant Helms, Emily Munson, and Justin Schrock. Each of our attorneys oversees an area of service. So that, as I mentioned earlier, when we have an issue, we look at it in terms of what is this issue pertaining to? Is it pertaining to abuse and neglect? Is it pertaining to education? Is it something that if we can resolve it, it can provide the client or the person with increased access to the community? What is the service need, the area of service need? And so that's how we classify those problems or areas of concern. And our staff attorneys are kind of delegated those responsibilities. Keith Butler, in the previous slide, he oversees our education team. Grant oversees our abuse and neglect team. Emily Munson oversees our employment issues team. And Justin Schrock, he oversees our issues pertaining to community integration. Grant has probably been with our agency, I think, about 2 years, and Emily is probably right around the same time, and Justin has actually been with our agency just a year. So as you can see, our agency in our legal staff is still very young in years of service at Indiana Disability Rights. Again, part of the redirection that we took in the specialization of teams under the direction of Dawn and Melissa. And thus far, we're finding that it's allowing us to serve a lot more individuals, to have this team-based approach with the attorneys very concentrated concentrating their efforts into issues pertaining to one area of service. The protection and advocacy services can be explained sometimes in video, and it's my understanding that we don't really have a good video feed in this format. But if you, in your free time, can or would be willing to watch this short YouTube clip, it is less than 2 minutes long, and it is an awesome explanation of the kind of where the historical foundation of protection and advocacy services came from. Why was it established so many years ago, and why is it necessary even today? So unfortunately, we're not going to view that together, but I would strongly suggest that you take just a couple of minutes of your time outside of this webinar so that you can watch this very short clip. It's put together by Rooted in Rights, which is a rights agency that does not serve one specific state like Indiana Disability Rights does, but serves as an overall encompassing agency. So they were able to put together this very interesting video for all of our agencies to be able to use to show who in the heck we are and what in the heck we do. So that's kind of an entertaining little look of services as well. Moving right into advocacy, this is the basic principle of who we are and what we do. As far as types of advocacy that we have self-advocacy. That is where we're using the Indiana Disability Rights resources for our clients or people that we serve to be better informed. We're going to be able to provide our use of our website publications, and even, as I just mentioned, different videos for individuals to become better informed of what their rights are and how to exercise those rights. We have individual advocacy. That is what I mentioned about. We have the advocacy teams that serve individuals by opening cases and creating individualized advocacy plans. We also, the teams are made up, as I mentioned, of advocates and attorneys. So those are two types of advocacy services that we provide. We also have systemic advocacy. That is comprised of litigation, going to court, systemic advocacy, or policy change. Talking a little bit more about self-advocacy, these are the two individuals that were pictured in our advocacy picture. At the top we have Dan Ward, and at the bottom we have Mary Alter. These are our intake advocates. When an individual calls into our agency, they would be routed either to Dan or to Mary, so that Dan and Mary would listen to the caller, and the caller might be the person with the disability, it might be a caregiver, it might be a service provider, it might be just a person who has a concern. But when that person calls into our agency, they'll be routed to our intake personnel. If the person would need further information, we can assist them in a variety of ways. One way is to provide them with resources. If it's that we can assist them on an individual basis, that's when we would provide them with the individual advocacy and open a case. That case would then be provided to one of our advocates, and they would become their worker, their case manager, their whatever term you wish to use to be the service provider from Indiana Disability Rights. If it's something where we're going to just provide a more generalized assistance, then we would be looking at more of using our resources. These are the phone numbers to reach our intake advocates. This is the generalized phone number to our agency, the 1-800 number, the phone as well as the TTY services calls directly to our central office in Indianapolis, to where the call is routed out into the entire state for the advocates who are positioned throughout the state. It's when the call is more complex or the request for services requires more assistance than just a telephone conversation and a referral, that is when the intake advocates would refer the issue to the teams overseen by the attorneys. That is what comprises individual advocacy. Oh, I think I'm getting ahead of myself there. One other issue, or one other thing that I did want to mention, is to just give you a breakdown of the specific teams that we do have. I've mentioned abuse and neglect, community integration, education, employment, and one other team that I have not yet mentioned is the justice team. And again, these are just the area of need that when the caller calls in, we're going to determine under which of these 5 areas does the person's need fall. Is the person being victimized and abused? Is it an issue that's limiting their access to the community? Is it something that's dealing with the education service, whether it's an IEP, whether it's like they're not being allowed to participate in services at school, they're being sent home, maybe their behavior plan needs assessed, whatever education issue that it is, whether it's an employment issue, it might be something in dealing with VR, or whether it's just maybe a quality of service issue. The individual is not being allowed, if they're maybe residing in an SOF, they're not being allowed access to the telephone. They're not getting their canteen dollars. Their rights are being restricted in that they're not being allowed to wear their own clothes. That is what those types of issues are what we determine are justice issues, basic generalized rights issues that we can assist with. Whatever the issue is, we will try to determine what team can best serve that individual both effectively as well as efficiently. And sometimes the issues are not that simple to where it involves more than one person, and that is when we would be looking at a larger systemic issue. A good example of a systemic issue that we recently dealt with is within the Department of Corrections, or IDOC. We're currently going through a settlement discussions with the IDOC on a lawsuit that we filed in conjunction with Indiana American Civil Liberties, ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, on behalf of inmates with mental illness who were segregated and isolated. The inmates were denied appropriate mental health treatment and services, and as a result of our own litigation, a number of changes have already taken place within the DOC system. So as you can see, we have different forms of services. We have the individualized advocacy as well as the systemic advocacy. Another form of systemic advocacy that we provide is, and again, all of these calls or issues come in through our intake advocate. But if it's not something that can be resolved quickly and easily on one person's behalf, it will switch over to that systemic advocacy. But another form of systemic advocacy that we currently provide is monitoring. And that is that we will simply go out to a service provider, kind of do a look through, a walk through, and look around to see what it is that may be an issue. Maybe we've received a call of a generalized issue, or maybe we're just doing a general look through to see that there are not issues. The question came up to me yesterday that someone at IPMG was notified, appropriately notified, that we are currently addressing 14C certificate providers. And that is a project that we've recently started and actually will be working on this summer, so that we're going to be going in, monitoring, and just creating and completing surveys of facilities with 14C certificates. Basically, we just want to see where we are in sheltered workshop environments. When I say we, meaning the state of Indiana, what is the state of Indiana within workshop environments? We, because we are a federally funded state agency, we have the right to access service providers, and this is a project that we've taken on with our own oversight agency of NDRN, National Disability Rights Network, to partner with them and just go in and look at these various facilities to see what are the individuals doing, what are they being taught, how much money are they making money, are the certificates all up to date? Just various questions to see what is the current state of those sheltered workshops within the state of Indiana. Now that we've talked a little bit about the forms of advocacy, I wanted to just show you the website. Again, because in this format there's not a lot of ability to go to webinar and come back, if you just take note of our web address there at the bottom, www.indianadisabilityrights.org, you can access that at a later time, and hopefully you will, to become a little bit more familiar with our website and what resources are available on that. One of the resources that we do have on our website is our online intake form. As I mentioned earlier, when calls come in, they go to our intake advocate. Another way to access those same intake advocates and request assistance from Indiana Disability Rights is to go online on our website, online services, and complete an online intake form. This is the area that you would simply complete, or have your client complete, or your guardian, whoever it is that would be interested in learning what we can do for them, can go online, fill out this very simple form. All that's required is name, the county that they live in, and an email address, and then how can IDR, Indiana Disability Rights, help you? If the client is unable to do that, you can assist them with that. Very basic. It does not have to be very well written or very thorough. If you or the client only gets a name and then a contact phone number in there, we will call. We will check with the person. So maybe it might be that you're filling it out and don't want to get really involved, or the person doesn't want to share a lot with you, if we just get a name and a contact phone number, Dan and Mary will call back and reach out to that person to get further information from them to get the issue beginning to be addressed. Our website is our most visited resource, with so many people surfing the web and doing everything under the sun on the web. We have found that more and more people are utilizing the online intake form, and because we also only have 2 individuals doing all of our intakes and providing information and referrals statewide, this can also be a more efficient manner of getting your hat in the ring for requesting services. The online form is obviously very short and easy to use, and then when you submit that, our intake caller or intake advocates will call back or email back if the person requesting assistance would prefer to be contacted by email. That is an option as well. This is just another slide showing that when you do access our website, you can very easily see who we are, what we do, and how to get help. It's very simple. It's on the in.gov system, so if any state agencies are trying to access it, it will be online and allowable by the state. I guess it's a state network. You know, there's no restrictions on it, but it is a .org. You'll notice that it's indianadisabilityrights.org. So please take note of the specific web address. You can search for us within the state personnel site, but we do have the .org at the end. Another thing that you can do online is to request a speaker. If you're having a meeting, or maybe it's a parent meeting, provider meeting, you can utilize our online services and request a speaker to come out and provide either a rights presentation or a presentation such as this: who are we, what is our agency, what do we do, and we can respond to you that way. That would be how our communication department would follow up with you as the requester to, again, meet your needs. Because we're not just here to serve an individual with a disability, we're here to serve the disability community. Those service providers who are providing services to individuals, not just the individuals, but we want to work together to meet everyone's needs. And this is another way that we're able to do that. This is actually how we became involved today. The intake came in online, and we were able to fulfill it by plugging in for the webinar on today. As you can see, the request for speaker is, again, a very simple online tool. Just fill in the boxes: who are you, your daytime phone number, your email address, what is your organization name and address, and then if we were able to scroll down a little bit further, there's a couple of questions about what it is you're seeking. Are you looking for someone to come out and do a booth at a fair or transition fair or event such as that you are having? Are you looking for a speaker for a workshop? Just various types of needs are listed there because, again, whatever your need is, we want to assist you in meeting what your requirement is. Those requests go to our Director of Communication and Outreach, Jessica Trimble, from earlier, and she would be the one to respond to your request. You can find both of those under the section in the website that we were just on, under what we do, and also IDR resources. As I mentioned earlier, with abuse and neglect investigations, we at Indiana Disability Rights do have federal authority to monitor facilities that provide services to individuals with disabilities. So if you, when you are out doing your work, if you see something that you think is wrong, or there's a violation of someone's rights or a possible violation, you can also contact us and we would reach out and try to resolve the issue. We do that by monitoring and investigating. We go into facilities such as state-operated facilities, SOF, psychiatric facilities, the state hospitals. We can go into nursing facilities and nursing homes. rehab centers, assisted living facilities, any facility that serves people with disabilities, we have the federal authority to go into. The federal authority that we utilize has a couple of different levels and layers that it's up to our attorneys to determine how best to access that facility. But we can go in and look at a specific individual's case or circumstance, as well as, like I mentioned earlier with the 14C situation, we can go in and look at the environment as a whole to see not just individuals, but what is the culture of the facility? What is the milieu of the facility? How are people interacting? How is staff interacting with the individuals with disabilities? Is there a culture of safety? Is it a hostile environment? Those are all things that we can go into and monitor and just look around to see what there is to see. But it is our federal authority that gets us through the doors in order to do so. Within monitoring facilities, we can go in on a regular basis. We have scheduled visits at some facilities, such as the state-operated psychiatric mental health facilities, or we can do observational experiences, like I just mentioned, where we just come through the door with utilizing our access to see what there is to see at any given time. Another issue that we assist with is voting rights. We can provide technical assistance to the county clerks to assist with poll worker training. We do not provide poll worker training as one-on-one, but we will provide the training for the county clerks to then do the one-on-one training for the poll workers. We can provide voters' rights training. That is where we provide actual voters' rights training to individuals with disabilities or service providers. We can monitor polling locations. We have staff available on Election Day to assist voters via phone or email. Something interesting popped up just this past Election Day in southern Indiana, in Evansville. There was a site, and you might have seen it in the media. There was a voting site, a polling place that literally had some very colorful signs out front that said, "Welcome, handicapped," no, it said, "Hi, handicapped voters," and it was in red and blue, big bubble lettering like, "Hello," you know, just glaring, "Hi, handicapped voters." And then next to that was a sign that was, again, in these quote-unquote cute bubble letters that said that in order to vote, individuals with disabilities or handicaps, as they used on these signs, had to go to a different polling place. And then written in marker were the addresses of the polling places that the individuals needed to go to. This is something that we became aware of on Election Day and are even now continuing to deal with, because obviously you should not have a sign out in front of your polling place that says, "Hi, handicapped voters." So we're dealing with this, and that's a very hot button in the media right now, is voting issues. But we're able to provide resources to voters detailing their rights. Some people may not have even known that that was an inappropriate sign. Obviously, the poll workers did not even know that it was an inappropriate sign. But we are working with them to treat this as a learning experience and to be able to teach them what would have been a more appropriate way of dealing with the fact that inside the polling place, the elevator had broken down. And so they were not able to move individuals who needed wheelchairs from the ground floor to the basement floor where the polling was located. So this was their attempt at changing the way that people were going to vote that day. But we are teaching them that that was not the appropriate way. There were better accommodations, or better reasonable accommodations, more reasonable accommodations that could have been made and should have been made in this instance. So voting rights is an issue that we're dealing with. And obviously during election years, it's more widely versed than non-election years, so that it's always available for us to come in and provide the training, but it's probably more popular to do so during years that elections are occurring. Going into closing, I wanted to just talk briefly on some case studies that we have. And these are actual cases that some of our advocates have worked on, and hopefully they're informative enough to give you some information, but vague enough that they don't give you too much information. So now that you have some knowledge on what advocacy is and what we do, let's just kind of give some examples. Case study number 1. Indiana Disability Rights was contacted regarding 3 individuals with significant cognitive disabilities that were left unattended at a fast food restaurant. This is a case that we received where individuals were being dropped off at a local McDonald's restaurant. No staff person was staying with them, and they were being left there for hours, about 4 hours, a couple days a week. No staff person was coming back to check on them until the end of this 4-hour time frame. The individuals had no money. They were obviously not there to eat. They had no IDs, so that when they were asked who they were, if they were not able to produce an ID or explain who they were, what their name was, what their address were, they had nothing written, or in their pocket to show who they were, where they should be. So just, and Jennifer, if you can assist me here, I would like to try to open it up for a little bit of discussion about what types of issues the participants might see in a situation like this. What is concerning over this type of situation where these individuals are just being dropped off at a McDonald's and then their staff is coming back 4 hours later and picking them up?
Great. If everybody would like to just type in real quick under the questions, then I can give her the information.
And here's a couple of questions. Is this abuse and neglect? Is what they're doing wrong? Yes or no? And if so, well, we'll wait.
Okay, so they're coming in. People are listing neglect, saying, yes, this is abuse. Exploitation, abuse and neglect. Safety issues, somebody noted, they could be approached by other people. Health and safety risk, if somebody had a seizure or some sort of health condition.
Yes, yes.
And then someone noted it's neglect, so it should have been reported to APS as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You guys are absolutely correct. This is a very atrocious example of abuse and neglect because they were simply left unattended without supervision in arm's reach of safety. Anything could have happened to these individuals. And as the last person you stated said, if abuse and neglect is present, which obviously we've determined that it is, to what agency does the incident need to be reported? APS, absolutely. Very good. In this situation, a member of the public from this fast food restaurant actually ended up calling the police. So not knowing who to contact, not knowing to contact APS, they reached out to the police, who then contacted APS. Some of the other issues that were present or possibilities of other issues that were present, as someone mentioned, there's a lot of health and safety risks. If the person did not have their medication during that time, if they had a seizure, if there was anything that happened, perhaps they became unconscious. They had no ID. The responding agency would not know who they were. And of course, as with any individual with a disability, their communication was limited. So even without incident, they had a hard time explaining who they were, why they were there, and why weren't they eating. They were just there. They were being left there. Some of the actions that we took as an agency was to work with other agencies, including the police, to determine who were the caregivers for these individuals and what on earth was their thinking when they were leaving these 3 men with developmental disabilities at this McDonald's for like 4 hours a day, 3 times a week. And It was actually explained to us that that was their plan, that was their treatment plan that the service provider was working. They were providing them with individualized community access on an independent level. So we were able to work with not just the outside agencies on reporting to them, but also with the service provider to get a better plan for them to get experience in outside community access. Jennifer, were there other comments?
Yes, everybody has a lot to say about this, but
okay.
People were noting that they hope the employees were fired or prosecuted about this. They also noted that beads should be contacted if we have incidents like this as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we did. We took this one full circle and dealt with every agency to see how this plan was passed through. You know, why was it allowed, who allowed it, and yes, there were actions taken for the persons who were actually dropping them off as well as the persons who were allowing it. So absolutely, this was a very, very tough case because come to find out, once we found the service provider of these individuals and located their home was atrocious as well. So that opened up a whole nother can of worms and responsibilities in providing them better care and seeing that these three gentlemen, that their quality of life improved. This was just the tip of the iceberg for their service. Jennifer, was there anything else, or should we move on?
There was a question kind of related to that. It says normally we would file an incident report and report to APS, but at what point, like in this situation, would they then reach out and contact your agency on top of APS and filing the state report?
It is not required that our agency be contacted as it is required for BEADS and APS. We are an oversight agency that you can contact at any point for further assistance. And then we can come in and assist with the reporting or to even make sure that APS or BEADS or any other service provider that they did what is required of them. So at any given point, our agency can be contacted for further assistance. If there's nothing further, I think we'll move on to case study number 2. And in this instance, the client, with the assistance of her father, contacted our agency and reported she was interested in obtaining her driver's license, but required an audio version of the driver manual due to a learning disability. If anyone has seen the driver's manual, it is pages and pages and pages long, and this young lady simply could not read pages and pages long to study for the 50-plus question permit test. So she needed an audio version of the driver's manual, and there was not one available. This is a very recent case. Surprisingly, the state of Indiana did not have an online audio version available for the driver's manual, driver's book. So we were able to assist her in getting an online version available that is now, our attorneys worked with the attorneys and the staff at the BMV so that now a format is currently available for download on the BMV website. So in this instance, what are some of the issues that people might see? The fact that she as an example, or any individual who cannot sit for long periods of time and read, what's wrong with there not being an audio version? And then secondly to that, how could you even determine if an audio version of the manual exists? And once determined that it did not exist, I think I gave you this answer already. What action should be taken?
Okay, people are typing in that this is discrimination. It limits who is able to drive or not and limits an individual's quality of life. Human rights violation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I had mentioned earlier, one of the teams that we have is access to community integration, the right to simply participate in life, to be part of society. And that is absolutely the issue at hand here. This individual had the ability, so she felt, to drive, but the inability to take the test in the same format or to study for the test in the same format that everyone else does. So she needed a reasonable accommodation. She needed some assistance to get the driver's test passed. And if anyone is interested now, you can go online and access the online audio version of the driver's manual in the state of Indiana. We'll go ahead and plunge right into case study number 3. There's a client with a mobility disability who contacted Indiana Disability Rights because she requested a reasonable accommodation of a reserved accessible parking spot close to her apartment, but the management denied her request. So we have an individual who drives or goes in other people's cars, either way, and she has a mobility issue to where she cannot simply step off the curb and get into a car. She needed a close parking spot that was accessible for individuals with disabilities. She contacted her apartment complex and they said, nope, we're not going to give it to you. Some questions that we can answer in the chat there is, does anyone know what is a reasonable accommodation? And when can it be denied? And if the housing provider, can the housing provider charge a fee for that reasonable accommodation? So was it okay for that apartment manager to say, nope, we're not going to give you this? And what options, maybe if someone can brainstorm on what options could have been extended to her so that she can access the parking lot and use the, have access to the spots and use the spots as a non-disabled person would as well.
Okay, we're getting in the chat. Someone noted the parking space shouldn't be an issue as long as the disability is documented, and she has a handicap parking pass. Someone's noting they cannot charge a fee.
You guys could be doing this presentation. You guys have all the answers. You're right. You cannot charge a fee. She has every right to access that parking space as well as the parking lot. Jennifer, were there any different answers?
Someone just noted that maybe a ramp as a substitute, maybe additional compromises could be available. Someone is asking, would they be able to charge her for the cost of the sign?
Would the complex be able to charge? No, that is something that the complex should cover in allowing her access to that. That may be an arguable point, but we would always argue and say no. But legally, I'm not sure whether they have the right to do so, but she has that right to that spot, and as someone mentioned, as long as it is documented, if they're going to put up a spot or a sign that says that it is accessible for wheelchair usage or for individuals with disabilities, then the placard needs to be visible, but the actual charge of the sign, I'm going to say that I think it's going to be the responsibility of the agency, but that would be something that would require some legal background research for specifics. Anything else, Jennifer?
Everything else is related to what we already said. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, we are right at almost 1 hour, and that actually concludes the presentation as it is. The next slide that we have up here is our general contact information. We have our local phone number to the central office, and I keep saying central office because I am physically located in Michigan City, Indiana, northern portion of the state. We do have regional offices located around the state, but we have our central office located on Keystone Avenue in Indianapolis. We have a toll-free number there, and of course, we ourselves are accessible for individuals with disabilities with the TTY service as well as a toll-free TTY. And feel free to pass any of this contact information along to anybody and everybody. For general information, we can be reached at info@indianadisabilityrights.org. And our website, as I mentioned earlier, is www.indianadisabilityrights.org. I am specifically reachable at Penrod at indianadisabilityrights.org, as I'm the Advocate Supervisor. And if anyone has any questions now, we've got just a few minutes. Jennifer, if you want to open it up for any questions, I will try to field whatever they are. And with that being said, everyone, just thank you so much for participating and listening to me talk at you, because I can't see you. So.
All right, the first question is, how does the State Ombudsman for Nursing Homes relate to your agency?
As I mentioned, we are an oversight agency, so the Ombudsman is another agency that during our investigations or during our monitoring, we look at what did the Ombudsman do. Every service provider, including Ombudsman, including BEADS, including FSSA, they all have their own set of policies and procedures that they must fulfill, and what we're going to do is to see that they have closed every circle on their end. Did they fulfill all of those policies, procedures, and practices within their own ombudsman's office to provide appropriate services for the individual?
Okay. The next question is, when you're investigating a facility regarding neglect and abuse, would the individual find out the results of that investigation?
That depends on whether they have a guardian or not. If they have a guardian, we would respond to the guardian. If it's the individual who contacted us, yes, we can share that with them, with him or her.
Okay, someone asked, when you find out situations like this, does state law require you to report it to APS?
In the past, we have found that when we report to APS, there's a bit of inconsistency or pushback on what is APS required response. So that is actually something that we have been dealing with in the legal matters, attorney to attorney, to determine what the responsibility is and what the response is. So I don't have that clear-cut answer. It's still being determined. But no, we are not. We will contact them, but we're not sure exactly what they do with that when we do contact them.
Okay. Someone wants to know, is there not a conflict of interest to be a state government agency and then trying to possibly investigate other government agencies or government contracted service providers?
I'm definitely smiling on that answer because that is one of the arguments that came up during the DOC settlement. Because we are a federally funded state agency, that is a common question, but the way that our statutes are written, we are the only state agency that is allowable for suing another state agency. In most states in the U.S., the agency such as ours is a privatized agency. We are only one of six one of six state agencies due to that very question. But legally, it has been proven that we have standing to bring lawsuit against another state agency.
Someone would like to know, are schools investigated by you?
Schools are, at this time, we have the ability to go in and monitor at schools, but we just don't have the resources to be able to do that. Given our staff of right around 30 and the number of schools that exist, that's not a project that we've taken on at this time, but they are investigated in terms of if Susie's mom calls in, Susie has a disability and Susie's mom has issue with her IEP, we will assist Susie and Susie's mom in that school. But as far as investigating entire school systems, we've not done that as of yet.
Okay. Sorry, I'm feeding through all those responses.
Sure.
A lot of comments about a great presentation, a lot of thanks to you. People are saying very enlightening webinar. And then probably one of our last questions down here at the bottom, do you find that most situations are resolved with, quote, education as opposed to coming in with the threat of legal action?
Good question. I wish I could say that most issues are resolved with, quote, education. I'm going to go out on a limb and say education with the strong arm of the law resolves the issue. A lot of times we as individuals, as people, we fall into doing what's easy. School systems, service providers, SOFs, what's easiest, what works best, and that's what they do. When our agency will come in and say what you're doing isn't really allowable or it's not the best thing to do, we're both teaching, but there is also standing behind us the possibility that we're going to take you to court. We're going to expose you to the media. We're going to do whatever it takes to teach you or reteach you what needs to do to help this individual. So it is the education in a threatening manner, I guess.
Okay. All right, we'll take this one last question. Are most issues resolved permanently?
Permanently?
Mm-hmm.
Did you say?
Permanent.
I believe so. Now, of course, problems morph and change over lifetimes and over, 6 months, a year, as people are always changing. So the problem might come back in a little bit different fashion, but as it presents to us, we are able to fix it, and it is resolved as it is. Now, that will also kind of leave the door open for the individual to call back if they begin to see the problem reappearing or morphing into something different. But in general, yes, as the problem comes to us and we resolve it, it is more of a permanent resolution, with the ability that we have no problem picking up the phone and reminding the service provider, hey, remember when we talked about this resolution? You fixed it. Well, can you fix it again?
And some of you that put in questions that are real specific to your situation, I would encourage you to reach out to Amy. I know, Amy, I speak for all of us on the call. Thank you very much for taking your time with us today. It's very helpful information. We appreciate your information and your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone who participated, and thank you, Jennifer, for reaching out to our agency, and I'm glad that I was able to provide a little bit of light into who we are.
Cool. All right, thanks everybody. Hope everyone has a great Friday.